In the glaciers of the Mount Beluga, the two largest rivers of the Altai are born, Katun and Buktama. They look like two sisters at their sources, but they flow in different directions. The Katun River flows into Bia River in the territory of Russia, and the Buktama River in Kazakhstan flows into the Irtysh River. Having separated at the tops of the Mount Beluga, the two sisters meet again after 3,000 kilometers in the full-flowing river of Ob to carry the glacial waters of Altai to the Arctic Ocean. This time the permanent outdoor KZ TV expedition will make a horse trip along the Listvyak Ridge. It divides the basins of the rivers of Katun and Buktama. We will get acquainted with flora and fauna of the Altai taiga, visit Maral breeders, learn the secrets of preparing curative Maral velvets, visit the ancient gold mining plant, catch some fat graylings and climb up the Salkinchuki Pass, from where the perfect view to the Mount Beluga opens. The wild nature of Kazakhstan is rich and diverse. For long centuries, mountains, steppes, deserts and forests were the best friends of those who loved and understood their native land. They gave men food, shelter, roof and hideaway from the enemies. Over time, our way of life has changed, but the nature still generously shares its wealth with us. At present, the landscapes and biological diversity of Kazakhstan attract an increasing number of tourists and lovers of active recreation. Together with a permanent outdoor KZ TV expedition, you will visit the most beautiful pictorial places of Kazakhstan and learn how experienced travelers survive in the wild. The Altai fairy tale began already where the Buktama River falls into the Buktama water reservoir. Going down to the valley, the Buktama River changes its stormy temper, gradually turns into a calm bottomland river. Its length is about 350 kilometers and the basin area is more than 12,000 square kilometers. A significant part of the river valley is situated on the territory of Zyryanovsk district is covered with mountain taiga forests. That is why these places are also called the green lungs of the East Kazakhstan region. There are many tourist bases and recreation areas here. Our expedition decided to rest a little on one of them in order to gain strength for a horse journey into the wild wilds of Altai. Our rest day we devoted to studying the tourist infrastructure around the water reservoir. Recreation areas are continuously running along the shore of the Golden Gulf. Here you can find an accommodation for every taste and for any wallet. It is possible to rent a suite with all conveniences for 12,000 tenge per day, but we chose a timber crib right on the lake shore for 5,000 tenge per day. We have 6 small houses for 4 persons each we rent here on the base. People cook for themselves. We also have a well bathhouse for 3,000 tenge per hour. Fishing here is quite good in this small creek nearby. Mushrooms and berries grow here during the season, strawberries and sleeper jacks. It is also possible to rent a pleasure boat. We had a small guest in the morning, an ordinary Altai squirrel. This small animal has got used to the abundance of tourists and is not afraid of people at all. He walked slowly along the board of the railing and, hasn't discovering anything edible, gave us an offended look. We had to find something tasty right away. The squirrel grabbed the cracker and instantly disappeared into the branches of the nearest pine. Apparently, 5 to 10 squirrel pups with an excellent appetite are waiting for their mom in their nest. Over the summer, squirrels have time to grow 2 broods of pups. There are 3 subspecies of squirrels living in the Kazakh part of the Altai: Kalbin, Telayut and common one. And since recently, a flying squirrel, usually uncommon for these places, has appeared here as well. In the wild, squirrels eagerly eat the pine cones. There is no shortage in food. The banks of the Golden Gulf are overgrown with pine forests. The pine is fond of dry, sandy soils of the ancient floodplain of the Irtysh River. For millions of years, the river has carried sands on its shores, forming high hillocks. A pine can live up to 500 years and grow all the time. If it is not cut down for several hundred years, it can grow up to 50 meters in height and up to 2 meters in girth. During previous centuries, the pine wood was cut down at about the age of 50 to 70 years, when the trunks reached 50 to 60 centimeters in diameter. In the humid taiga of the southern Altai, a close relative of the ordinary pine grows, pine nut or cedar, with which we still have to meet in the humid taiga forests of the Listviak Ridge. It is difficult to describe the fragrance of a pine forest. You can really smell its specific aroma only in nature. Pine needles allocate a huge amount of phytocides and essential oils which possess powerful bactericidal properties. That is why health centers for treatment of pulmonary and renal diseases are being built exactly in pine forests. The evening on the shore is quite fresh. The daytime air temperature rises up to 30 degrees and the water warms up to 22 degrees. The Bukhtarma Reservoir is one of the 5 largest artificial water reservoirs in the world. The Bukhtarma hydropower plant was built in 1960 and the reservoir has been filled in 6 years. Now its length is 425 kilometers and the largest width is 35 kilometers. The average depth is 9.6 meters. Industrial and tourist navigation is developed across the reservoir. Its basin is rich in fish and is rightly considered one of the tourism pearls in Kazakhstan.
Хорошо бы отдохнуть недельку здесь в Сосновом Бору, но нам уже пора собираться в высокогорную часть казахстанского Алтая.
It would be nice to spend a week in the pine forest, but it's time for us to leave the resort area and move to the highlands of Kazakhstan's Altai. Strictly speaking, the Bukhtarma water reservoir already belongs to Altai, but the local pine forests do not look like the mountain taiga forests at the foot of the Mount Beluga. There is a completely different animal and plant world, a different climate, different logistics, and even a different way of people's life. Although tourism develops in the both places, there are quite different kinds of tourism. Here it is rather a beach tourism, more looking like a vacation, and in the taiga zone, adventure tourism is highly developed. There are different target groups of clients and different approaches to the organization process. Here the process is needed to be put on a flow, and there each group of tourists has its own demands. And it's good that we have an opportunity to compare these two types of tourism. Today, the professional organizer of tourism, Marabek Abdulin, became our guide to the wonderful world of the Kazakh Altai. He was born and spent his childhood in these parts, then studied and engaged in business in the city, but returned here in adulthood and decided to devote his life to the development of tourism. The road stretches along the left bank of the Bukhtarma water reservoir towards the district center, the city of Zyryanovsk. It is located in the intermountain hollow between the ranges of Holzun and Listviak. This area of the Altai mountain system is called the ore-bearing or Rudny Altai, since the region is rich in polymetallic ores and mining and metallurgical production has developed here since ancient times. At present, Zyryanovsk polymetallic industrial plant became the city-forming enterprise. The next waypoint of the expedition route is the village of Bolshenarin. The mountain chain protects the valley of the river Narim from severe northern cyclones from all the sides, so the microclimate there is favorable for agriculture. The fields of sunflowers and grain crops are stretching along the road. But the higher the car rises to the mountains, the less there are fields and the more pastures. Landscapes are gradually changing. The steppes give way to mountain taiga forests and alpine meadows. 30 kilometers from Katon Karagai, the expedition route turns off the asphalted road to a country road along the Buktama River. Here begins the edge of the Maral breeders and beekeepers. The population of the villages of Barlek, Beloyo, Korobika and Akshebag has been breeding Marals for hundreds of years. The distance of 80 kilometers from the road to the village of Akshebag, the expedition overcame in 3 hours. The name of the village of Akshebag is translated as White Poles. Previously was called the Upper Katun. The name of the village goes back to the first stage of the development of Maral breeding. In the past centuries, when the wire netting was not available, the Maral breeders were building barriers from white branches of birch and aspen. From a distance, aviaries for the Marals seemed white. The systemic crisis in agriculture connected with the transition from a planned to a market economy has caused serious damage to the Maral population, but now it is slowly recovering. Manabek and his wife Anna took a deeply unprofitable farm with a completely destroyed infrastructure and managed to put it on its feet.
С распадом поголовье уменьшилось. В данный момент это хозяйство досталось нам.
With the destruction of the farm, the livestock also decreased. Then this household went to us. We bought it with a plan to develop the livestock of Marals and revitalize this village of Upper Katun. Because many people have moved from here. Only about 10 families remained. Now we have begun to improve conditions, pay salaries, and many people are returning back. In the summer, the picturesque village on the bank of the river seems like an earthly paradise. But when winter snowfalls cut it off from the civilization for many months, it doesn't seem like a paradise to the locals at all. This village used to be big. Here it was the largest population of Marals, which reached up to 2,000 heads. With the collapse of the state farm, our stock has fallen sharply. There were no earnings here. People started to leave. They even left houses with furniture, moving to the city. Only 5 families remained here, but now with the formation of a new peasant farm, the conditions have improved. The roads began to be cleaned, the livestock of Marals increased, the wages are paid. Now people are slowly returning. For 5 years of hard work, enthusiastic people have managed to create a village and establish a profitable economy. The rapid development of health and adventure tourism helped them to achieve success. Pantotherapy Hospital and the tourist base were organized on the basis of the Maral breeding farm. Today, members of the expedition can afford to luxuriate in comfortable rooms and amuse themselves with professional cuisine. Tomorrow, we're going to face the harsh romance of the equestrian trip along the Altai Taiga. For 10 months, we are engaged in Maral breeding. We feed them and take care of them. Different equipment is situated here all the time. The remaining 2 months go for welcoming the vacationers. We cut the antlers of animals. Cut antlers are being collected and cooked in the cauldron. Afterwards, people bathe in this healing water. This water really possesses healing properties, taking out all the negative stuff from your body. People like us. They say that they did not get sick in the winter after such a vacation. Traditional for the Altai population, treatment methods such as Maral antler baths, medicinal herbs and honey cannot be considered separately from the psychotherapeutic effect that nature has on the holidaymakers. Active rest among crystal clear rivers and forests itself already gives such a charge of vivacity that it is enough until the next holiday. I come to the Upper Katun, to the Akshebag every year for health improvement. The nature here is very beautiful, and the received treatment allows us to feel wholehearted and healthy for the whole year. Manarbek and Ana are doing a good job trying to revive the local tourism. We have been in many places abroad, but we were convinced that there is no such a beautiful and picturesque nature as we have here. To date, our government is doing much to develop a tourist cluster in the region. There is no such nature anywhere. You come to such a beautiful place, take treatment and enjoy nature. What else does a person need? I think we should appreciate what we have. Our Kazakhstan is a very rich country with magnificent nature and kind people. There is 8 to 10 kilometers to the border of Russia. Further, the lands of 4 states, Russia, Mongolia, China and Kazakhstan, are intersecting. I think it would be interesting for many tourists.
Өскемен арқылы осы жерде мына кереметтерді көріп, осылай демалуға болады.
Young antlers of Marals were used in Chinese and Tibetan medicine back in ancient times. The ancient healers have noticed that the young antlers grow much faster than other biological tissue. In May, they look like small buttons similar to juice-poured buds, and in June they're already enormous antlers weighing up to 20 kilograms with a sweep of up to 2 meters. The ancient healers made a conclusion that the velvet antlers, like the buds of plants, possess the mystical life force which was called differently in different philosophical and religious systems. It must be said that the conceptualizations of the ancient healers were not so erroneous. This real-life force actually exists. In 1855, it was scientifically described by the English physician Thomas Edison and got the name of hormones. Later, other biologically active substances were discovered. In the 60s of the 18th century, the Chinese began to buy velvet antlers from the hunters of the southern Altai. High prices stimulated an increase in catching volumes, which at the beginning of the 19th century led to a sharp decrease in the number of marals throughout the Altai. The reduction of the natural resources of valuable medicinal raw materials made the inhabitants of the South Altai develop technologies of game breeding. According to travelers, the first catch was made by the Sharipov brothers on the Listvyak Ridge. They built an aviary from the white birch poles, which was called a garden. This name has got accustomed, and the maral cages are still called the gardens. In the wild, young cubs of marals were caught, which are actually easy to catch in the first days of life. In 1836, the outstanding naturalist and explorer of Altai Friedrich August Gabler, in his work The Review of the Katun Mountains with the greatest Mount Beluga, already mentioned these domesticated animals. In the Soviet time, the population of Marals in the Kazakh part of the Altai reached 15,000 individuals. However, the socialist way of Maral breeding was focused mainly on the export of velvet antlers as a source of convertible currency in which the Soviet economy was needed. Health tourism began to develop only after Kazakhstan gained its independence. New people come to Aksherbak from different regions of Kazakhstan, from Russia and from far abroad. Many of them combine medicinal procedures with the elements of adventure tourism. They go fishing, hiking and horseback riding and watch wild animals.
Природа здесь вы видите воочию.
You can see the nature yourself. Mountains, forests, meadows, it's wonderful. Mountain water, fresh springs, and Marals. This area, as I heard, is the birthplace of Marals. We arrived here 3 days ago. We've heard much about this place. This is my 3rd day here and I'm so happy.
И просто я польщен, что попал сюда.
Издревле
Since ancient times, we all know that antler baths have a revitalizing effect on human health. It is good that now in Kazakhstan we have the opportunity to visit such remote places to enjoy nature and strengthen our health.
Ездим давно, начинали 18 лет назад.
We have been traveling here for a long time. We started 18 years ago. There was a large village of the Upper Khatun which have ceased to exist for only 7 or 8 years. But approximately 5 years ago, the new owners appeared, who are now trying to make the life of the holiday makers happy, taking antler baths for their health. New buildings have been built. The work is moving on.
Построены новые корпуса, работа движется.
Landscapes within the Kazakh part of the Altai are very diverse. North to the ridge of Listvyag, the dense taiga forests begin, and to the southwest, the rather steppe-like slopes of the Kuchumsky Ridge. And only here on the border of different landscape zones, the optimal conditions for Maral breeding are formed. It's not too dry and not too humid here. It's not too cold and not too hot. The forests are not too thick and not too sparse. Everything is just perfect. More than 100 endemic representatives of the Altai flora grow on the territory of the Listvyag Ridge, many of which are medicinal and at the same time form the basis of the Maral Food Reserve. Another traditional occupation of the inhabitants of the village of Aksherbak is beekeeping. The first apiaries were founded in the beginning of the 19th century. Earlier, beekeepers used to take honey to the city for sale, and now the buyers come to the village themselves. The Antlers therapy system is based on the slogan "Only ecologically clean products." Among these products, honey occupies a special place. If you collect honey from a monoculture, for example, from the fields of the holy cloves or knotweed, you can get a larger honey flow. But honey from the herbs of alpine meadows has a very different value.
Biz осы жер biz осы жерге тек келген жоқпыз. Бұл біздің ата-бабамыздың жері болған.
We had a reason to come here. This is the land of our ancestors. They left us these wonderful lands. Our dream is to save them for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. In the future, we plan to organize other types of recreation. For example, we can arrange fishing. Also, there is the Mount Beluka nearby, and there are several routes leading to it. In this area, a large number of different types of plants grow. So many different animals live here. We want to show it all to people. There was a time when we all left for the city, studied there, built a career. It was hard. We had to get to our feet. We succeeded. Now with time we have returned to our origins. I think that if every person who grew up in the village will return to his native land and will try to improve it, our Kazakhstan will prosper even more. People who are new to the specifics of the organization of adventure tourism think that this is a simple matter, but this is only an external illusion. For example, equestrian travel is a demanded type of tourism, but it requires a serious infrastructure, a whole staff of specially trained people able to provide customers with safety on the route and an organized living. If the flow of tourists is small, the revenue received cannot pay back all the expenses. And the travel agencies that do not have their own infrastructure cannot guarantee their customers the quality of service. In order to understand the hidden details of the organization of adventure tours, the Outdoor KZ TV expedition, together with guides from the Upper Khatun, goes on horseback tour along the Listvyag Ridge. The expedition program provides the departure to the crest of the main watershed, from where you can see the Mount Beluka and the Khatun River Valley. Visit the ruins of the Altyn Plant ancient gold mine lost in the taiga and grailing. When cedar nubs begin to ripen, bears rise from the valleys to the cedar necks. The nubs are not ripe yet, but still suit for bears. A bear mother with her 2 cubs hurries to the nearest stone pine forest for an important business. At the height of about 2,000 meters, the snow lies during the whole summer. At night, temperatures can drop to minus even in July. We arranged a halt at the top of the Salkinchoki mountain, which translates as a cool peak. Here, in fact, the breeze is constantly blowing. By evening, the team rose to the crest of the main watershed. From the mountain pass, a view of the majestic Beluga River's beauty opens. Its tops almost always are hidden in the clouds, but even through the foggy haze, the stern power of the highest mountain of Siberia emerges. Beluga has two distinct peaks: the eastern peak of 4,509 meters and the western peak of 4,435 meters. But a little bit aside, there is the third peak called Delaunay of 4,260 meters. All the peoples who had ever lived in the Altai gave a sacred power to the Beluga River. The Kazakhs call it Muztaushiny. The root of the word Muz means the ice, Tau means the mountain, and the word Shiny literally translates as the glass, but has a figurative meaning of crystal or real. The Listberg Ridge breaks down steeply stepwise. The Katunsky Ridge at the opposite side gleams with snowy crests, and in the valley silvers the Katun River. This is already the territory of Russia. The Turks called the southern Altai the Holy of Holies, where nations are born and the borders of civilizations intersect. Once the Altai really became the cradle of a young Turkic ethnos, and now the borders of 4 states of Kazakhstan, Russia, China and Mongolia meet here together. Archaeologists have found the monuments of ancient metallurgy in the Altai Mountains. The mines and carries of local mountains, rich in ore, for thousands of years provided people with copper, tin, iron and gold. The expedition is headed for the ruins of an ancient golden mine in the upper reaches of the Lukina River.
Эта река называется Лукина. Река Лукина.
This river is called Lukina, and here on the shore there is a series of burial mounds of 2 or 3 meters in height and with a diameter of 5 to 7 meters. You can find traces of the activity of gold diggers of later eras near the ancient burial mounds. In the 18th and the first half of the 19th century, the hard hand of state power had not yet reached these places. Hundreds of adventurers, runaway peasants, robbers and lovers of wild freedom left for taiga in search of gold and freedom. Some of them found gold and others an unnamed grave. The picturesque ruins of the miners' huts, overgrown pits, decaying picks and spades and pale bones of the adventurers of the past remind us of the period of the Golden Rush. Several years ago, a national park built a log cabin for tourists on the place of an old gold-toned vein. Modern travelers for a few days can live the life that gold diggers have lived and experience the harsh romance of Golden Rush era.
Вдоль берега реки вот много вот таких вот ям диаметром метра 3.
There are many pits of a 3-meter diameter along the banks of the river. These are the remains of the pits. Here people were manually digging these pits or galleries. They took out the rock and washed it on the trays. This pit is about 50 meters from the shore, and there's the second, third, fifth and sixth one.
Вторая, третья, четвертая, пятая, шестая. Весь берег изрыт.
In hard-to-reach places where it was difficult to organize the industrial development of gold-bearing veins, gold was washed by the hands of the miners and under the Soviet power. Our grandmothers used to wash gold. There was a collection station in the village of Upper Katun. The gold has been washed in the old manner, on sheepskins, so what could they wash out? Just some grams. They brought everything and handed it to the collection station and took sugar, tea and other necessary goods instead. The busy schedule of the expedition forces the Outdoor KZ TV expedition team to think about returning back. But what would an expedition be in the Altai Taiga without fishing the grayling? In search of fisherman happiness, our team sets to the headwaters of the river. In the spring, the grayling rises higher upstream, and in the second half of summer, it goes down. The grayling is usually being caught for a fly. Sometimes, different insects are used as bait. Grayling is found in practically all rivers of the southern Altai. Amateur fishing is allowed all year round except the spawning period. Now here is the first catch. The expedition will not remain without a fish broth. Now we're sure that we will try the famous grayling so we can safely go back to the camp. After a hard expedition, it's good to take an antlers bath and drink a couple of cups of tea from the golden and Maral roots. Relaxed and rejuvenated, the members of the outdoor KZ Permanent TV expedition can return to the tightness of cities. But the energy received in the Altai will be enough until the next trip.